Hey guys, welcome to the video. So in this video, it's going to be somewhat of a catch-up. I'm going to be talking about Air, Barry Season 4, Across the Spiderverse, The Flash, and Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny. So I'm going to start off with Air just because I don't have as much to say about it. I saw it the most recent out of any of these films, and I liked it quite a bit. I think Ben Affleck's a good director, and seeing him and Matt Damon collab is always really great. You know, they're childhood friends from, I think, even before they were in high school. So seeing that bond continue and them just being like, we want to make something really good is inspiring. So, you know, the film follows essentially the creation of the Air Jordan and how in the 80s Nike wasn't doing very well among all the main sneaker lines. They were third in comparison to Adidas and Converse, and they really needed a boost, and so they tried to turn to Michael Jordan for that. And as someone that has never really cared about sports in general, I thought that the film was really interesting. It was really interesting, and I suspected that it would, captivate me in that sort of way that's interesting to hear other people talk about their own interests, even if you personally don't have interest in it. Like I have this feeling that when someone is very passionate about something, it's so much more interesting, even if you don't have much of a care for it. I feel the same thing with like Welcome to Wrexham, the Rob McElhenney, Ryan Reynolds documentary show about them buying the sports team, the soccer team in Wrexham. And yeah, it's like, wow, you guys really care about this, and therefore I'm more invested than I would be on my own. And for that, I thought that the film was really interesting, and it's cool seeing what something like sports, something I don't particularly have interest for, really means to other people. And for that, I thought that the film was very good. So I saw Barry Season 4. Barry was my favorite currently running show. Something that was very bizarre about the finale was that they released it the same day as the Succession finale. It just came out that way, which I thought was a really stupid choice, because having to digest one finale after the other is very tough, and that makes me really happy that I actually haven't gotten into Succession yet, because I really want to watch it. I've heard great things, but if I had to watch the Succession finale and then this, that really would have sucked. I can only handle one emotional catharsis in a day, and yeah, Barry is now finished. Season 4 overall, very good. The time jump I was not expecting at all, and the first time we did the time jump, I actually thought that it was part of Barry's fantasizing of what his future with Sally could be. And no, it's all real. I'm going to get into spoilers for the season if you haven't seen it. But Barry is just absolutely a spectacular show. When they did the time jump, I love when shows do that towards the end, like, Breaking Bad's my favorite TV show of all time, and that has a time jump at the end of it. And it's cool seeing stories go beyond where the ending usually feels like. And I think that's just really cool, because you get to see the characters in a more reflective state of all the stuff that happened in the current, quote unquote, current continuity of it all. Because with the time jump, the show then takes place in the future, in 2030 or something like that. I am conflicted on the last episode. My brother and I had some thoughts about whether or not we thought some character choices were right, specifically with Cousineau and his sort of greed coming back this season after the time jump. I am conflicted. We were talking about, does it feel like character assassination, or does it feel like someone who has just changed over almost a decade? And that's the sort of talk that my brother and I have about like Star Wars. Like, is this character assassination, or has the person just had 30 years of time to become a different person, which obviously is entirely possible. I think I need to watch it again, the finale, because I've only seen it once, but I think I wasn't entirely into it. However, I did hear Bill Hader talk about the show overall and it being heavily inspired by the Coen brothers. And when you put yourself in that mindset, the Coen brothers mindset, their movies do not end in satisfying ways, whether they end abruptly or, like the main characters have a, unsatisfying, brutal end. That being put in that mindset made me think more of the Barry finale, and that it's supposed to be more like a Coen Brothers film instead of this like big spectacle thing. And obviously, just because something's realistic doesn't mean that it can't be satisfying on an emotional level. And I did think we were going to get something more like that, but instead we got a more realistic ending to the story, which I think I'll appreciate on further, on a rewatch of the finale and the entirety of the show, especially. It's very clear they're taking Barry to a place that was dark, but Walter White in Breaking Bad and Saul in Better Call Saul also went to dark places, and I think that they had endings that were satisfying, cathartic. I know the point is probably that it wasn't supposed to be that. And something that I do like about the finale is that Barry gets what he wants. He is seen by society as a good person, and the question is more so at what cost. He paid a very heavy price for that. I still, in my heart, though, am unsure of where specifically Barry and Cousineau are left. Fuchs, I think, got a good ending, and I think they definitely did Hank justice. He's basically the only person where I'm like, yep, that's exactly how it should have gone for Hank. I don't know, maybe I'm just not seeing it clearly. Maybe it's supposed to be more of a cautionary tale than a satisfying conclusion. So I got to sit on it. It's hard talking about it just without the. I've let time pass since I've seen it, but I don't know that I could say I like it or dislike it. I think I lean more towards dislike, but I also feel that there's something very deliberate here that I might just be missing, as far as in relation to what it's supposed to be versus what I wanted and Bill Hader's influences. So I also watched Spider-Man Across the Spiderverse, and I absolutely adore this movie. It's my favorite movie of the year. I personally think it's better than the first film. I know a lot of people are like, well, how can you say that without seeing the second part? I do. First parts are their own films, like Empire Strikes Back is his own movie. That movie ends in a very unsatisfying way. Empire Strikes Back is my favorite Star Wars film, and yeah, Across the Spider-Verse it's so spectacular. The animation is great. There's a lot of fun references and Easter eggs in there. Some of them I very much was not expecting. Everyone's got a really great arc, and it's paced so well. Like, it just zooms by. Gwen's got a great arc. Her monologue at the start is so good. There's like a 13-minute Gwen Stacy prologue before the title even comes up, and we see Miles, and it's all so good. Peter B. Parker kind of takes a back seat in this movie. I'm going to assume he has more to do in part 2, or, Beyond the Spider-Verse, as it's now called. We're going to have to wait, like 3 years for that now. It was supposed to be 9 months, and yeah, they pushed it. And now, obviously, with like the writer's strike and the actor's strike, that's not going to, that'll probably delay even further than that. But, I'm still very, very much pleased and satisfied with this film that I've got nothing else to say, really. And also, I talked about this a bit in my last video, but Phil Lord and Chris Miller, throughout all their films, they are like absolute masters of diversity. Like, they do it right, I think. There's a lot of, diverse people of different backgrounds in Across the Spider-Verse, and it doesn't feel forced. It just is. It's matter of fact. There's no attention drawn to it at all. There's absolutely no attention drawn to it. It's the characters just are, and I think that's how you do it. You don't try to get points for the diversity. You just do the diversity. I think that's really great. The cliffhanger was great. It really took me a while to figure out what was actually happening. And yeah, it's so good. I can't wait to see it again. I would have gone to see it in theater a second time, but just so much stuff has come out, and it'll probably be on streaming in like a month or two. So that'll definitely be a very instant rewatch. Great film. I also saw The Flash, and a lot of people were really shitting on this movie, but before it came out, James Gunn said that he loved it, and I believed him because he didn't say that about Shazam or Aquaman. And I might be one of the only people that really loves this movie. Like, I don't think it's perfect in any way. The visual effects are not complete. Also, as far as being like a nostalgic, full-on experience with Michael Keaton's Batman, which is what I was mainly there for, it doesn't completely fill that. For example, he never drives the Batmobile, something I was really looking forward for him to do. It's not No Way Home. No Way Home like checks off basically everything you wanted the nostalgic Spider-Man to do, you know? This movie doesn't do that as much, and especially with the, the ending, it doesn't really, you're like, okay, well, I guess that was it. I think, obviously there's a lot of controversy with Ezra Miller, and I think that Ezra Miller is someone who, needs to pay, a debt to society for all the crimes. And after that, I don't know. I don't know if Ezra Miller plays the Flash again. I think James Gunn would probably say no, but we'll see, I guess. But it's just frustrating because Ezra Miller's so good in the film, as both Barry Allen's. I think the script's a lot of fun. It's very clear that the main influence of this movie is Back to the Future, specifically Back to the Future 2. There's just so much Back to the Future 2 in this. And I also like that it does do a bit of the Avengers Endgame stuff of going back to previous movies, which again, Back to the Future. But Endgame was this like big epic finale on top of being a time travel movie. I think this movie allows itself to relish in the concept of just being a time travel movie, essentially. I'm gonna get into spoilers for The Flash. Just know that I really liked it, and I feel kind of crazy because everyone else pretty much hates it, or just thinks it's fine. I just thought it was a lot of fun. It was like a Looney Tunes cartoon at points, and I mean that in the best way possible. So just going to spoilers because I don't want to hold back. Here we go. Michael Keaton's Batman dying sucked, and when they brought him back, I was like, okay, cool. So he'll continue to be around, because I thought that first death was a bit unceremonious. But yeah, his death is like treated, and Supergirl's death, as part of the moral, that there are some things that you can't change. Sometimes everything, there are so many different solutions that equal 42, as is used as a metaphor in the film earlier. I thought the stuff with Barry and his mom was really sweet, and the final scene where he decides to remove the tomato sauce was really emotional. Seeing all the cameos was great, even though they were all spoiled for me. I knew about Nicolas Cage, I knew about Christopher Reeve and the Supergirl from that film. I don't know that actress's name. And then, George Clooney. That stuff was all spoiled for me, unfortunately. But it was all really cool. A bit creepy, but it was fast, so it wasn't, a huge deal. One of the problems I had with the movie was basically the re-explanation of the plot of Man of Steel with General Zod. The whole thing with Krypton's, basically, the DNA of Krypton or whatever, the lineage being inside Supergirl instead of Superman in this universe. I don't think any of that needed to be explained. Like, just have Zod show up and he's evil, and he's like that because he's a supervillain. And if you remember the plot of Man of Steel, great. But if not, it doesn't matter because it's not really relevant to this film. I didn't think we needed the re-explanation of all of that. I thought that it was so clever to have Flash, the main Flash, lose his powers, and then the powers go to the young, stupid, inexperienced Flash. That was all so good. It made for really good conflict, as was the lack of metahumans and him being on his own, which I think is why it was crucial to see Wonder Woman and Batman at the start of the film, where it's like, okay, here these guys got it. Flash is basically the janitor, as he calls himself. And for him to be put headfirst into this situation on his own with no metahumans, that was really great. And you got cool cameos like Tamora Morrison coming back as Aquaman's dad, and he's married to just a random woman. And then another Easter egg I loved was the green laughing bag that Jack Nicholson's Joker had in Batman '89. That was really cool. I thought that the script really had a kick to it that you really felt throughout the entire film. It felt like no second was wasted. Flash. There's a lot of really good setup and payoff, like, Barry phases through the wall to get Iris a beer, and then later we see that he uses that power in a, specific situation where it's very necessary. And then Iris references the scene from the Snyder Cut with the car, which is really cool, knowing that the Snyder Cut's canon to this movie. And then Michael Keaton, he does a really good job as Bruce Wayne. He doesn't phone it in. What's interesting is that this isn't technically the same Michael Keaton as the one from the 289 movies, because with the spaghetti metaphor, they explained that universes are basically like crossover into a new universe. And so in this universe, there are also elements of the DCEU, like General Zod showing up and all that. And so, we can assume that this universe that Barry's in is a combination of the Burton universe and the DCEU. And that presumably Michael Keaton's Batman also, the original one from the first two films exists in his own parallel universe, and that maybe this one that we're seeing the Flash, I mean presumably because we saw the green bag, has the same exact history as that Michael Keaton, but that one didn't exist in the DCU, or this new combination of the Burtonverse and the DCU universe. When the Nicolas Cage stuff was spoiled for me, I actually thought that the explanation was going to be that he exists in the Tim Burton universe, but then that didn't end up being the case. He was in his own pocket universe. Because that film was supposed to be directed by Tim Burton, so I thought it would make sense for him to be there. But we didn't exactly go to the Tim Burton universe. We went to a new, hybrid universe, basically. The stuff with the tape measure was great, and like how much do you weigh, all that stuff from Batman '89. That was really cool. I was hoping that Michelle Pfeiffer would make a cameo as Selena Kyle. That didn't end up happening. But again, they might not be married in this universe. We don't know. And also that wouldn't really work. I thought it would be like an after credits where he goes back home and she's there, but he dies in the film, so that's not possible really. So yeah, overall, I really like The Flash. By the way, seeing the girl from Derry Girls, Saoirse Monica Jackson, in a big budget film was weird, and I like seeing her there. She's really great. I'm sure I'm forgetting to mention something, but I really enjoyed the film. The visual effects weren't done, but apart from that, I thought that all of the emotional stuff worked. The action, visual effects weren't done. I would have liked more of, fan service with Michael Keaton. But Sasha Calle, Supergirl. She was really good in the film. She didn't have a lot to do, but for what she did, she was pretty cool, and I liked her. And the twist of it not being Superman and being Supergirl, that is obviously spoiled by the fact that we see Supergirl in the trailers. But apart from that, it's fine. I guess in a sequel we would have found out if who killed Barry's mom. I know it's supposed to be Reverse Flash or whatever, but in the context of this film, going in without that information, that's like a loose thread. So in a sequel, that'd be cool to explore. And then Barry's got George Clooney as his Batman now, which again lends to the whole idea that it's a spliced universe of Batman and Robin and the DCU. And also now we can assume that that each time Batman was recast in that Tim Burton universe and Joel Schumacher era, that those are different universes, not recasting. And they might all have the same histories as each other, which is really cool to think about. I know some people were saying it wasn't maybe necessary to have Michael Keaton be the Batman in this universe. I do agree, because I don't think they did everything that they could do with him in terms of nostalgia and all that. But it was still nice to see. It was great to hear that Danny Elfman score. I wish they'd done more, but I was still happy with what we got. As for the future of the DCU, because this is, Aquaman's going to come out. I think that takes place before this. I'm guessing Barry doing all this like spaghetti timeline stuff is going to, that's the creation of the new James Gunn DCU, and we might just hop over to a different universe where some of the actors are the same and some of them are not. So Ezra Miller might not be the Flash, might be somebody else. But that will have been, that will have happened because of Ezra Miller's actions during this film. So yeah, overall, really enjoy it. Everyone I went to see it with enjoyed it. So I guess we might just be, some weirdos. Like my dad liked it and he hates superhero movies. So I think that says something. So moving on, now I'm going to talk about Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny. This was my most anticipated movie of the year. Then the Cannes Film Festival showing happened and we got a lot of mixed reviews. And so I was both really hyped for it and kept my expectations in check. And I thought if I kept my expectations in check, it would be really good. And then I'd be, I had reason to be hyped for it. So it was a weird paradox. And I really enjoyed the film. I think it's really good. It's like like a 7 or 8 out of 10. It's not amazing. It's not to the level of the original trilogy, but I liked it quite a bit. You really feel that Spielberg's not directing this one, especially in some of the action scenes. In the opening, it feels like Spielberg, but there's a chase in Tangier that goes on for a really long time, and it doesn't have like the little Spielberg like flares, like, oh, and then this happens, and then this happens, and then this happens within the chase. It just feels like they just chase each other. There's not a lot of flair to it. And when you, like, I rewatched all of them. Crystal Skull, I'm actually not someone that hates Crystal Skull. I like about 80% of that film. I could do without the nuking the fridge, and I'm cool with the aliens, but I don't want to see the alien at the end. I'm not into that. I'm fine with the flying saucer, but I'm just do the skeletons, or if you're going to show the alien, do it in shadow. I don't want to see a full-on alien. But yeah, in those action scenes in Crystal Skull, it really feels like Spielberg's directing it. The chase in in Connecticut at Indy's college is like a great action scene that Spielberg has directed, and like the energy is really high up throughout that entire film during the action scenes. I really enjoy that film. Like, if you told me Crystal Skull or the prequels, the Star Wars prequels, like, it's no competition. I'm taking Crystal Skull. That feels like it was made by someone that's really intelligent and knows what he's doing. Now, this film I liked a lot. I was sort of torn on the whole Nazis thing, but once, because I'm kind of tired of Indy fighting Nazis, but once you get into the plot, it does make sense. It works. It was spoiled for me. I'm going to go into spoilers just because I don't want to hold back. So, spoilers, I liked it a lot. We're going into spoilers. It was spoiled for me that Marion and Indy were getting a divorce and that Mutt had died in Vietnam. Now, the movie does tell you these things pretty early. You hear about Mutt being dead in Vietnam on the TV screen when Indy's wanted for murder. And there was part of me that felt that was kind of disrespectful to Spielberg, because the very last thing that Steven Spielberg directed that was an Indiana Jones scene, and the last thing he will ever direct, as far as we know, is Indy having married Marion and him having a son and them just having a happily ever after. And then this movie has to destroy that in order to justify its existence. Now, luckily, I'm okay with that because the movie, I think, ended up good. I think that, Marion's not in the film a lot, but her presence is really felt. And you really feel the burden on Indy's shoulders in this movie, and him still being interested in history and all that, and the world moving forward. The opening scene in 1969 is the moon day, of the landing of the moon landing for the U.S. and he just doesn't care about it because he cares about history, and now he's being forced to retire, and his life has sort of hit a dead end. And I know people have like issue with that, with it's like, oh, we're emasculating our iconic male characters, and I don't see it like that at all. I see it as, in life, people have ups and downs, and we're meeting Indy at his down, and his story is to find his mojo again and be that great person again, the Indiana Jones we all know and love. And I think that is inspiring. I don't see the issue with that. I think that it's cool seeing him become the hero again and figure it out, because at the start of the movie, people are getting shot and he's like, oh my god, he's freaking out, I gotta call the police, which is not what Indiana Jones would do. But he hasn't been Indiana Jones for a really long time, and you start to see him figure it out again and be like, oh yeah, like you see him getting back into the groove of being Indy. I think that's really cool. And also think that it's so rare, and so this is such an interesting opportunity to see an elderly individual in a film who's the lead of a big, what's supposed to have been blockbuster series, with this new film, and them him being treated with absolute dignity. Like he's not ridiculed in any way. He gets some jabs from Helena, a character that has caused a lot of controversy. When I saw Helena in the trailer, I was really scared she was going to be the new young plucky lady who's going to be, giving jabs to the old man that's stuck in his old-fashioned man ways. But you watch the movie and it's not that at all. They jab at each other, and she's not seen as like a role model. She's seen as she's like an asshole, and that's the point. But I think that she's putting on a front, and we see the reality of what she is on the inside, which is, Indy's goddaughter, someone that had a soul at some point, and that sort of went away because she had to learn how to survive because she was alone, and then she figured it out, and this movie, in this movie, she finds her soul again, I think. And it's not like she's completely capable, like there are moments with, for example, the scene with the water displacement. She's like pulling on the doors like an idiot. She doesn't know what to do. And then Indy's like, oh yeah, no, we got to put this stuff in the water. The water displacement will happen, and then we can get through into the next room. So the gas doesn't kill us. I thought that was all, that shows that Indy has a leg up on her occasionally. It's not what a lot of people are claiming it to be, that she's just ridiculing him the whole movie. The opening was really cool. It felt like classic Indiana Jones stuff, like him like accidentally being the driver and like knocking on the head of the soldier. All that was really cool. Now my issue with it is the fact that they chose to de-age Harrison Ford, and it looks really weird at points. It looks like a video game, which, if it were a video game, it would look great, but this is a movie. It's not a video game, and therefore it looks bizarre. It's trying to be a classic film, but then you have that stuff, and it just kind of takes you out of it. And then, on The Mandalorian, they just did deep fakes, and it looks really good, and I don't know why they couldn't have just done that for this. I know they wanted Harrison Ford to do the acting for this scene, but as far as the overall experience for the audience, that would have been better. And then, someone to do an impersonation so his voice doesn't sound so old. It was speculated for a long time that the object in this movie was a time travel device, which I was nervous about, we had aliens, but is time travel too silly for Indiana Jones? But I think it was done in a way that was very tasteful, and at the end of the movie you find out that the dial can't take you at any other point in time. It could only ever take you to the Battle of Syracuse, where Archimedes is. I know some people wanted him to jump around in time, or even to his previous movies. I think I really would have been against that. I thought what they did was perfect. They didn't go haywire with it, I especially did not want him to go back to his previous movies. I thought that would have been lame. But yeah, I think it really worked here, and they handled it well, I think. Then moving on, there's the character Teddy, who was fine, I guess, but easily could have been cut out of the movie. This kid's not short round. Short rounds are great. Teddy kind of sucks. They did some backwards writing, is the best way I can call it, where it's like, oh, we want Teddy to fly a plane earlier, later. So it's like, oh, let's go back earlier and include a thing where he's learning how to do flying with a simulator device basically. And yeah, I don't know. That was just, when I heard he was flying a plane in the movie, and people weren't mentioning the fact that he had a co-pilot in it. So that worked much more for me, but still, Teddy really didn't need to be in the movie. I was totally cool with it just being Indy and Helena. I think that Mads Mikkelsen is really great in the film as Jürgen Voller, and I think that, he's just doing the Mads Mikkelsen thing, but I think his motivation to go back in time and kill Hitler is really cool. Boyd Holbrook is his main lackey, and I think, he didn't have a lot to do, but they gave him a thing. He's hot-headed, and he's trigger happy. There's also a bigger lackey, and it was like, oh, that's the guy Indy's gonna fight later, and they didn't really do any. He got killed in a separate situation, so it was a bit disappointing. I know Harrison Ford's older, but you could have easily had them fight, and Indy has to think of, use his smarts to fight, to outsmart his bigger opponent that is stronger than him with, things around him. That would have been really cool. He could use his smarts to defeat him. That doesn't happen. Antonio Banderas, it was nice seeing him. He didn't have a lot to do. The diving scene overall, I'm a bit conflicted on. And the reason for that is because being underwater, especially with this film taking place in the late 60s, there's not a lot of room for emotion. And reactions. I thought the whole stuff with the eels was cool, but you're just seeing someone panicking underwater, and in a movie today they would have these specialized suits where the characters could speak with each other, and you could see the actors' faces, and it would feel more like a scene because the characters were in it. But with this, it's and I kind of get the point. It's sort of like a 60s James Bond movie. It's Thunderball, I think, is the one where they're underwater for a lot of it. And, again, it's like taking inspiration from the movies that came out at the time. But yeah, I don't know. It didn't entirely work for me. I thought it was fine, but I never thought I wanted to see Indiana Jones in like a scuba gear. But also, it does add to the element of like, this is archaeology, and they do kind of that boring, quote unquote. They do like the school elements of archaeology in like Last Crusade, for example, when they're going through the tombs. Not that that's boring, but I mean, they do the more like scholarly stuff, and that's why when I was like, oh, okay, they're diving into like get those pieces. It's like, all right, this is more of the like, actual archaeologists might do something like this to uncover the stuff at the bottom of the ocean or whatever. I think Harrison Ford's really trying in this film, and you can really feel it. He has actual care. It's not like his weird ass cameo at the end of Rise of Skywalker. Like, it feels like he really is putting in effort, specifically when he's talking to Helena on a boat. He's really trying, and I like that. And he wanted to like ride the horses himself and all of that. Harrison Ford's doing a really good job in the film. Speaking of that boat scene, someone pointed out, I don't remember who it was, that Helena is like doing the card trick, and she explains that she makes you pick the card she wants and creates the illusion of choice, which is a lot how very much how the dial works. The dial makes you think you can time travel to any time, but really the one and only place that you can go to is Syracuse, which is the place that Archimedes specifically chose. I think that's really cool. There's a lot of really cool foreshadowing like that. At the end, the people of Syracuse think that the plane is a dragon, and Helena and Indy, they see the etched in the side of Archimedes' tomb the propeller with the fire and all that. So there's foreshadowing like that. But the one that I personally really loved that I noticed was that during the puppet show, you have one of the soldiers, and he's like getting attacked by a dragon. So it's like, oh, okay, that's all that like time loop stuff. The Harry Potter and the Prisoner of Azkaban stuff, where it's like that's Indy and Helena and the Nazis and all that. That's really, really cool. And I think that feels more like James Mangold than Steven Spielberg. Salah's also in the movie. He's not in a lot. He does his song that he does in Raiders. Seeing Salah was nice. It would have been cool for him to go on the adventure, but I get John Rhys Davies is older, and he's also like a giant, so he might have been a bit, doing stunts like that might be cumbersome for an older man who's that big of a person. But seeing him in the film was really great. And then, at the very end of the film, before I get to that, I was not torn. I was scared that Indy was going to stay in the past, and that's what he wanted to do. And I was terrified that was going to happen. And I feel kind of mixed about the fact that Helena like just punched him and took away the decision from him. I know people were equating it to Last Crusade. If Henry Sr., Sean Connery punched Indy and knocked him out when he was trying to get the Holy Grail, instead of allowing him to make the decision for himself. Indy doesn't make the choice at the end. And I do get it. He's very depressed. He feels like he's got nothing in his life. He doesn't know that he's got other options, like with Marion. And so, yeah, on some level, it does make sense to me. But I was really 100% against him staying, and I'm so glad he didn't. I think just, like, morally, that would have been wrong. Like, yeah, if your life sucks, just, like, take yourself out of the equation. Like, obviously, he's doing it with time travel, but that's basically what's happening, And then you've got the ending of the film, the very end, which I genuinely got really emotional, which was seeing Marion Ravenwood again. And I did not think she was going to be in the film. But, Indy's like, who am I? Like, Helena's like, you've got a lot of people that, like, you should be here for. And he's like, for who? And then I was like, wait, is Marion in the movie? And then I heard the door unlock, and I was like, oh my God, Marion's in the movie. And then Karen Allen steps through, playing Marion Ravenwood. And she's playing it in a very casual way that I like, like just bringing in the groceries, not really addressing her, situation with Indy. And then you've got the really great thing at the beginning where he sees the picture of her, and he like puts the magnet on her. And then you've got a moment that's very Spielbergy, where there's a lot of like she's like putting the groceries in the fridge, and then Indy just like very subtly takes the magnet off her face now that she's back, which feels like a really cute little Spielbergy detail. And they have a scene that is a callback to the scene from Raiders where Marianne's trying to tend to Indy, and she's asking him where on his body it doesn't hurt, if it hurts in so many places, and he like points and she kisses each spot. Only he's doing it for her, and it was just so sweet, and it was just nice seeing these like old people in love. It was great. I got emotional. It was great. Probably one of my all-time favorite, like top 3 favorite movie couples of all time. Indy and Marion, just wonderful. So, and then everyone runs off. Helena runs off, and then Indy's hat is hanging on the little string to dry the laundry, and then he pulls it, and then the movie ends. And it wasn't amazing. It's a flawed film, but I really, really enjoyed it. I definitely liked it. Like a 7 or 8 out of 10. A good time. The critics were much too hard on it. The audience score is much higher than the critic score. It's like at 7. It's like at 80, maybe, something like that. I don't know. I haven't checked in a while. But yeah, those were my thoughts on Dial of Destiny and a bunch of movies. And I am now caught up. There's some stuff from last year that I finally did watch. I never reviewed. I might do a video for those. And then this weekend, Oppenheimer and Barbie come out. I've got my Oppenheimer tickets, and then I'll go see Barbie a few days after. So thank you so much for listening, and that'll be the end of the video. Bye.